Eren Yeager is what Nietzsche spent his life warning us about.
What is freedom? The one who has the will to assume responsibility for oneself.
Some people see Eren as the man who saved his fellow Eldians. Others say he's a genocidal monster who killed 80% of humanity. But I see something neither side is willing to admit. I see the exact kind of victim mentality that Nietzsche diagnosed 100 years ago. One so consumed by oppression, he completely lost himself. The first act of the show was about Eren finding his way to what he thought meant freedom, the ocean. But when he got there, things seemed a little different. A place once seen as hope is now but a wall to cross before he sees more enemies to defeat. And that's Eren. His only path forward is the removal of all obstacles. For Eren, freedom means removing every single obstacle until nothing can stop him. But that's the exact problem. There's always going to be more obstacles. This is Nietzsche's negative freedom, a being that uses eradication as a tool for liberation. Now let's compare that to a character like Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy, the protagonist from One Piece, has but one goal: become the king of the pirates. And he does so by living authentically while creating space for others to do the same. It's additive, communal, and joyful, but Eren's depiction of freedom is purely subtractive, isolated, and hopeless. Bottom line is that Eren desperately seeks liberation, while Luffy just is. This twisted idea of negative freedom is exactly what Nietzsche feared among men. But where does Eren's desire to be free even come from? This moment is where people think his journey to freedom came from, but it came way before. I never thought about what was beyond the walls until then. I'd only spent my days looking at the clouds in the sky, but then you came running to me with a book. Both of us were outcasts. We never got along with the other kids in town. That's all we were back then. But it all changed when I heard you telling me those things, and I saw the look in your eyes. You looked like you were having an amazing dream, a dream I couldn't see. And that's when I knew, for the first time, I wasn't free. I realized that I had been living in a birdcage all that time, and those freakish things had taken away my freedom. The world was so big, but it forced me into a tiny cage. I knew I could never forgive them. Nietzsche would not call this ambition. This is a child who would find any excuse to feel powerless. This is what Nietzsche called resentment. Resentment is what happens when someone experiences a pain so deep that the pain stops being something they feel, it becomes something they are. Their entire identity gets built around the wound, around the oppressor, and around the cage. Remove the walls, Eren sees nothing. Remove Marley, Eren has nothing. Remove the oppressor, Eren is nothing. But the ironical question in this show is this: could he have prevented all this? Eventually we learn that he's the only human being in existence who can see the entire timeline of events. The rumbling, the death, his own end, he could see it all. But despite seeing it all, he still ended up manufacturing his own faith. Many fans say Eren had no choice, but I say Nietzsche would argue that he chose every single bit of it. He foresaw everything, the friends he would have to betray, the graves that he would have to dig, and he still went forward anyway. Not because he had no choice, but because a man whose identity is built entirely around a cage cannot imagine a life without one. So when he finally had the power to write any story he wanted, he wrote the only one he knew: suffering, walls, destruction. This is the antithesis of what Nietzsche called Amor Fati, love of fate. You see, Nietzsche had one test to see whether a human being was truly free. It's one simple question. If you had to live this exact life again, with the same pain, same losses, and same moments, would you say yes? Would you genuinely want the same life again? Eren would say no. He died wishing he could relive his life differently. A lot of fans would call his deeds a necessary sacrifice, but Nietzsche would call it the confession of a man who hated his life so deeply he couldn't imagine a version of it worth loving. You see, at the end, Nietzsche might have despised Eren Yeager, but he would have deeply respected Hajime Isayama, because Isayama did what Nietzsche demanded from great art. He wrote the character of a wounded human being all the way to its ugliest conclusion. No redemption, no happy ending, just the honest cost of a life built around a wound. Eren's story isn't just about titans, walls, or genocide. It's about how much of your life right now is genuinely yours. Be honest with yourself and look at your own life. How much of your situation right now is based off your upbringing? How much of it is based on your decisions? And how much of your decisions is based on you replaying your old traumas? Yes, shit happens in life and those canon events are not your fault, yet it's still your responsibility to own your fate, to own your reactions, and to own your decisions, but above all, to love the fate that you're in. Again, ask yourself, if you could relive this exact same life without changing a thing, would you accept to relive it? If you answer yes, then, and only then, are you truly free. Thank you for watching, guys, especially if you have reached until this point. The thing is, every character we study is just a mirror. If you want to understand your own patterns so that you can thrive in life in terms of money, career, or relationships, link in the description below. I'll see you on the other side.